This is Red, White, and Bluegrass.
This week, President Trump's proposed 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada were put on pause for 30 days, but if implemented, the steep tariffs could have a profound impact on the bourbon industry. According to Kentucky Policy Executive Director Jason Bailey, Kentucky has the 6th biggest share of imports from Mexico, Canada, and China, and the 5th biggest when it comes to exports. But with the tariffs, not only will prices go up on things like bourbon, but people could potentially lose their jobs.
If companies in Kentucky are selling less products to other countries, and that continues for a long period of time, they will inevitably have to employ less people.
I hope that President Trump can accomplish his goals of more fair trade deals for America without hurting signature industries.
Former Senator Damon Thayer, who is CEO of his own bourbon brand, is still cautiously optimistic. Governor Andy Beshear also weighed in, saying that tariffs on the industry will put the livelihood of 23,000 Kentuckians at risk. So Representative Heavrin, let's start with you here. Is there a way the state should be preparing or bracing for any sort of impact? Is there a role that state lawmakers would even have to play in that?
You know, Bodie, I think the most important role that we can play right now is just watching what's going on, keeping our eyes open on the conversation on tariffs, but also keeping up with domestic and international policies that could be affecting us here in Kentucky. You know, frankly, I think it's really important for us to keep an eye out for industries like the manufacturing industry, the bourbon industry, agriculture, because tariffs can really affect those. And so I think the most important role we can play right now is just keeping our ears to the ground and paying attention.
Your thoughts, Representative Hancock?
Well, I live in one of the most bourbon-based districts in the General Assembly, being in Frankfort. So there is a lot of worry, but I think as leaders, we just need to do just watch it and be cautious. And if we need to open up the pocketbook to fix some of these issues, and that's what we're going to need to do to protect, again, the Kentucky families and the workers in the industry, all the way down to the people that are growing the corn for bourbon.
Do you think that they will actually inevitably hit, or so far are you gauging this as more of a negotiating tactic?
Yeah, I think right now we're seeing it as a negotiation tactic with Canada and Mexico. Whenever President Trump brought that to the table, they came to the table. Canada and Mexico both came to the table to talk. You know, I think it can be a very powerful tool against China. I think what we've got to pay attention to, though, is how does this affect Kentucky families? How do these affect countries all over the United States? One thing I do believe is that the Trump administration, they aren't going to hurt families. We're already suffering from Biden inflation and how expensive it is to go to the grocery, as we've talked about, or just living life. And so I do think that they will keep that in mind as they move forward with policies about tariffs.
Well, I believe there's a more diplomatic way to go about these types of negotiations. That's just my leadership style. I think that the concern isn't necessarily the tariffs, it's the way the current administration goes about their leadership and how the tactics that they use create fear and chaos. And in that environment, we just need to assure the Kentuckians that we're going to lead like they've elected us to do, and do what we have to do on the backside.
Is there a long-term concern that inevitably a country might call our bluff there?
I mean, Canada's pushing pretty hard right now. So yeah, of course. I mean, they pulled all of the Kentucky bourbon off the shelves. That's a punch in the face for Kentucky, you know. So we'll see how it goes.
Do you think folks actually understand tariffs or kind of get the whole impact of how it could be affecting the family at home? We talk about the word so much on the news, but I'm curious, in the conversations y'all may be having with constituents, you think folks actually kind of understand how it may hit?
I think they'll understand it when they see it firsthand. I mean, I think that that's the reality of just most people don't pay attention to these things. They're worried about where their groceries are going to come from, the price of eggs, things like that. They don't really care about this. But when it does start affecting them, then I think they will start paying attention.
Last word, Representative Heavrin.
Yeah, I agree with Erika. I think a part of it is an education portion on our side, and for the federal elected officials to talk about what this actually means. But people will notice it when it increases prices, and especially for our small businesses. You know, I know some price effects are already happening, some price changes, and so I think it's so important for us to recognize that, but also what can we do to help educate people of knowing what's going on.
All right, thank you both so much for your insight. We'll be right back.